Hi, my name is Tjok Gde Kerthyasa and I'm a health scientist, homeopath and holistic medicine consultant. And we're here in my herb garden, one of my favorite places, in the foothills of Mount Batu Karu, Gunung Batu Karu, in Tabanan, right in the middle of Bali. And I'm about to pick a few herbs that we're going to use to put into a medicinal soup that I discovered when I was very sick last year. And during that illness, I got an inspiration to heal myself through food as well as through homeopathy and herbs. And I had this impulse, it was almost like an intuitive download to create a soup. And I just, pulled myself out of bed, got into the kitchen, and I started putting this soup together. And I've given the recipe to quite a few people, and a lot of people have had benefit from it. So I'd like to share it with you today. And we'll pick a few herbs and then head down to my little wood-fired hut, and we'll start cooking the soup. Okay, so we've got Tulsi here. Tulsi is an incredible herb. It's one of my personal favorites. And this one I will use as an ingredient in the soup. I also use it in medicinal teas and medicinal inhalation steams to really help with all sorts of respiratory conditions, viruses, coughs, bronchitis, even pneumonia. And in Ayurveda, this is considered one of the most sacred plants, one of the most sacred herbs that can be incorporated into almost anything. So almost any constitution will benefit from Tulsi. So I'll pick a few of these. And Tulsi loves to be picked. If you have Tulsi at home and you want to preserve it and make the Tulsi last longer, you pick it. Every time you see these little florets, the flowers, these contain the seeds. And being a basil plant, the botanical name is Oxymum sanctum, or sacred holy basil. When these mature, the plant actually gets old. So Tulsi is almost a metaphor for the goddess who gives. She just wants to give all the time. The more you receive from her, the longer she lives and the healthier she becomes. So on our herb garden, we're always very careful to make sure we pluck Tulsi, and we pluck with a great deal of respect. And there's even mantras that are used while picking the Tulsi to give thanks to Tulsi Devi, or Goddess Tulsi. And right next to Tulsi, for some reason in my house, I've always had Tulsi growing with this wonderful plant. This is Mugwort, also known as Artemisia vulgaris. If anyone's ever had acupuncture and you've had the moxa sticks, that wonderful aroma comes from this plant. And in Chinese medicine, moxa plant or Mugwort is considered to have the same vibrational frequency as the human body, which is why it harmonizes and balances the human body. It's also been researched heavily with all sorts of different viruses and has been shown to have very strong antiviral properties. And it's also used in Indonesia for malaria treatment. So it has an antiparasitic, antiviral, antimicrobial component to it. And I even love the flavor. You can eat it straight up, or you can boil it, you can make a tea from it. And it's a wonderful ingredient for the soup. Artemisia also loves to be picked. So the more you pick Artemisia, the more bushy it grows, the more it expands. It's very easy to propagate this plant. You just take some of the roots or a cutting of the stalk here, and you stick it in the ground, and it'll regenerate and grow a new plant. And Mugwort's a plant that has a lot of shamanic uses as well. It grows almost all over the world, in almost any place. and has, in many of the shamanic traditions, it's also used as a smudging stick. It's used in herbal teas and to drive away evil spirits in many cases. So when we're making something medicinal, we also want to have something with that action in it to help balance the energies of the body. Okay. Okay, we've just had a bit of rain here, and one of the ingredients in the soup is mushrooms. Now, I usually just put shiitake mushrooms. If I've got a bit of reishi at home, I put some of that in. But we have been gifted with jamur kuping, or oyster ear mushrooms, sorry. And these guys grow wild on the land here, and after a bit of rain, we get a lot of them come up. So it's a real gift. I'm going to pluck a few of these, and we're going to put them in the soup as well. Because there's nothing like foraged food. If there's as many foraged ingredients as you can get, we put them in, because food that grows in its natural environment is much more nutrient dense, and it also, being a holistic medicine practitioner, I also like to look at the energetics of the food. So if food grows on the land that you're in, it's going to have much more of a harmonizing affinity with your body. So we'll take a few of these beautiful mushrooms and say thanks to them. I'd like to remind everyone just to say thanks whenever we pluck these gifts from nature. Got some nice ones here, nice mature ones. I like to leave some of the little ones so that it keeps propagating. They keep giving off their spores, and the old ones I leave as well so that the spores are there for when they regenerate. So here we are at the wood-fired stove in our little hut here, and I always love lighting a fire here because we've got a grass roof, and the smoke from the fire actually helps to preserve the grass roof. So every time I light the fire, I think I'm preserving the house, and it's just wonderful to be out here in nature. And we're going to start putting this soup together, and I'll just explain a few of the ingredients first. So we have a lot of root vegetables in here, and one in particular that is really special, and I'm so glad that it grows in Bali and that we have an organic farm that grows it here, is burdock root. Burdock root is very well known in both Western and Eastern herbology as having a beneficial effect on the liver. It really helps to balance the action of the liver and detoxify the liver. Which is really important in any kind of either a viral or a bacterial illness, but also for everyday living, I think now. Good also for the spleen and for kidney energy. So there's a lot of really grounding ingredients in here. We've got onions, we've got sweet potatoes, you can also use yams, carrots. They add a nice sweetness to it, and carrots are also really good for the liver and the spleen energy. And we've got a whole lot of wonderful indigenous spices here. We got ginger, turmeric, which is almost, we have to put this in almost any medicinal formula that we put together, and we're very lucky in Indonesia to have this growing everywhere. It grows so easily here. We've got cinnamon, also very good for any respiratory conditions, and also it helps to warm and stimulate the circulation, which is also really important in any kind of particularly viral or bacterial illness, because the circulation, the blood flow and the lymph need to flow really easily and steadily. And one of the big problems with the recent viral conditions that people are experiencing is a lot of thickening of the blood. So Cinnamon's really good for that. Now in Bali we have, everyone's familiar with this kind of garlic. You know, your usual garlic from the supermarket. But we are very lucky to have found the original indigenous organic Balinese garlic. And you see it's much, much smaller, but it's got a really spicy, pungent flavor, and you can get away with using just a little bit of this to get the benefits. And everyone knows about the medicinal effects of garlic. Also very good for the circulation. Antiviral, antibacterial, so powerful that they say you can even just put one little one little garlic plant in your room without cutting it or doing anything if someone's got a cold or flu, and it helps to prevent other people from getting it. Okay, now we got shiitake mushrooms. Also, they are a nice edible medicinal mushroom. And we have dried ones here. We also have access to fresh ones if they're in season. And these also have antiviral properties. We've got some pepper, just to add a bit of spice, flavor and warmth to the soup. We have sea salt from Bali. Coriander seeds. Coriander seeds are well known in Indonesia as an anti-flu medicine. So just boiling up some coriander seeds in water and adding some wild honey, you've got yourself an anti-flu formula. And we have cloves. Now cloves are very, very important. Cloves were considered one of the main herbs at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, and they've been used a lot for helping with any kind of respiratory issues. And we have some cumin seeds or common seeds. In Indonesia we call them jintan putih, and these are also, I like to put them in to add a bit of pungency to the flavor, and they're also very good for the circulation. Got some extra virgin coconut oil made by the women right in this village here in Tabanan, in Blulang. And I think it's time that we start chopping. Okay, so I'm gonna get started, peel a few things. For the amount of soup that I'm making, I don't need this whole big piece of burdock. I can just cut a little bit off. I like to cut it into kind of chunky sections. Yeah, that carrot should be good. Sweet potato adds obviously a nice amount of sweetness to the soup. It's also very good for spleen and pancreas energy. It cleanses the liver, and it adds nice kind of a texture to the soup. It thickens it up a little bit. With this kind of a soup, sometimes if you're feeling a bit sick, you just really want to drink the liquid component of it. And so what I sometimes do, and by the way, I like this soup whether I'm sick or not. You don't have to be sick to enjoy it. After a day or two, the sweet potato kind of adds a thickness to the soup. It's really nice. And if you're in another part of the world and some of these things aren't available, you can always exchange for other kinds of root vegetables. Another one that we can put in here quite happily is beetroot. Yeah, any variety. If you can, look for an organic heirloom variety. Radishes are really nice in here as well. Parsnip would be really good if I was in, in Europe or England or even Australia, America. It's not really native here, so I don't use it. I like to use the indigenous varieties. Yeah, you can put yams in. Any kind, there's so many wonderful heirloom root vegetables, and all of the root vegetables have a nice grounding effect and help with the liver and the spleen. Spleen's really an important organ to protect and nurture during any kind of an illness, especially those that involve the blood, because it's in the spleen that a lot of blood cells are regenerated. The balance between white and red blood cells, immune cells are also sort of created and dispensed there, as well as in other parts of the body. Okay, we've got these ready. Now what I'll do is start getting some of the spices ready, because what I'm going to do first is actually roast and stir fry the spices, and then I'm going to put these in with a little bit of oil, and we're going to kind of stir fry them first before I add the water in. Okay, first I take an onion and I'm just going to peel it and really just cut it in half. I'll take a better one, that one's looking a bit funny. Yeah, this one's good. So again, when you're not feeling too good, sometimes you don't want to be too detailed in your cutting and things. So this soup's a really simple one. Sometimes my wife jokes about it and say it's a man's soup, because I like to cut things pretty chunky and don't worry too much about the size. But really, the medicinal properties, if you're using good ingredients, will come out anyway. We're more concerned about medicinal and energetic properties than about appearance with this soup. You take these little garlics. For this, I'm doing a medium pot, and I really just, sort of peel them off and just crush them and put them in. So for this, I'm using 2 cloves of the small Balinese garlic. And if I was going to use the big ones, I would just put one clove, one bunch of the garlic in. I'll take we call this in Bali a blakas, or in Indonesian a golok, a cleaver. I think cleavers are kind of universal all over the world. Cleavers, axes. Because these are organic garlics, I don't even worry too much about getting the peel off them. But if I was using non-organic garlic, I would definitely peel them very well. Alright. I'm going to use 1 clove or 1 piece of turmeric, about sort of 2 thumb lengths for me. And again, you can be approximate with it if you really love turmeric. It's very, very good for you. It's good for almost any system in the body, especially liver, gallbladder, spleen energy. It's good for the stomach, good for the intestines, and it's got many, many antimicrobial properties. So this one's pretty clean, and it's from a trusted source, so I'm not too worried about peeling it completely. Sometimes, to be honest, I just put it straight in, especially if I've grown the turmeric myself. Make sure that I wash some of the dirt off it. But again, a little bit of dirt doesn't hurt, and it, in fact, if it's good dirt, may even help with your microbiome. It's one of the big things that we're going through as a race, as human race, is the depletion of the microbiome through industrial chemical farming. And that's why I'm sort of focusing a lot to spread this message of organic farming here in Bali. And I do it through herbs first, because that's what I know. Just cleaning off any little bits. That should be fine. All right, and I'm going to use approximately the same amount of ginger. Just look for a nice piece. Yeah. About the same amount. Ginger gets a little bit dirtier, so I like to peel that off. Again, if I know it's from a trusted source, then I'm even happy just to give it a crush and stick it straight in there. There's lots of people selling healthy food, but I always say the healthiest food you can ever have is the food that you cook with your own hands, because your energy goes into that food. All right, so I'm going to move over now to the stove, to the wood oven, and we're going to start frying the first ingredients and the spices. So an old technique they use in India when making curries and things, which I seem to have adopted myself, is to actually dry fry the dried spices first. So anything that's been, powdered or in a dry form, like the coriander. And again, I'm pretty loose with this. I take about a small, I would say that's about a teaspoonful of the coriander seeds, and I put those in. I'm going to put about the same amount of the cumin seeds or the cumin seeds in. And with the pepper, just a pinch. I don't like to put too much in, but again, you can put as much as you like to your taste. The cloves, I'm going to put 10 cloves in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we are. And I'm just going to let them roast almost for a couple of, not even a minute. So sometimes you can hear the little seeds cracking. That's the time when we start to put all the other ingredients in. Or you can even actually get a smell of the aroma that's coming out, which I'm getting now. Yeah. So I've had my iron pot on here for a little while, so it's nice and hot. Now when I get that, I'm going to put all the other ingredients in. Onion, turmeric, ginger, and all the garlic goes in. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of oil. I don't want to put too much in. I'm going to put about 1 tablespoon. Now, the oil is really just there to sort of get the process started. I'm not frying these per se. I'm just sort of crisping them up a little bit. And when you're ill, you don't want too much oil, because it puts more pressure on the liver. So I'm just putting a little bit in there, and really make sure you use good quality oil. Don't use frying oil or these sort of vegetable oils. I like to use either, we're in Bali, we're using coconut oil. It's the best here. You could also use some olive oil if you like that as well. It's about a tablespoon worth of oil in there. I'm just going to stir these around a bit. And I'm going to leave them while I go over and get my other ingredients. And I want to stoke this fire up a bit to get a bit more heat going now. So I'm going to get the fire going a bit higher, put some more wood on, and we'll come back over to the pot and start cooking. Okay, so it's nothing like cooking on a wood fire. It's the best. So this is nice and hot. Nice and hot. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is put in the rest of the ingredients. I'm also going to just give these a little bit of just a quick stir fry. I'm going to put in a piece of cinnamon, just one cinnamon stick's enough. I'm going to put in the beautiful ear mushrooms that we just picked. And the shiitake mushrooms now. I'm going to put about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll put 7 in here. 7's a nice number of creation. Alright, we'll stir that around a bit. And now we're just, that's good. I'm going to put the water in. So we're very blessed here on this land to have an incredible spring. So this is really medicinal soup. So we've taken water that comes directly out of a natural spring here. And I've just sort of had it heating on some of these earthenware pots. Again, it's a very old tradition in Bali and throughout Indonesia, these earthenware pots. And so it's ready to mix in there. And then last, I'm going to put in some of my medicinal herbs that I just picked from the garden. So I'll put the mugwort in, and again, I don't chop it up or anything. I just put it in as is. I'm going to put about 5 leaves in. And we're going to put the Tulsi in. I'm just going to separate some of the, just going to take the little leaves off separate them from the florets, from the flowers. Again, I'm always quite intuitive with how I cook. It's a bit frustrating. I can't follow recipes, so I just like to sort of go freestyle with it. When I feel that there's enough in there, I like to stop there. I'll give it a little stir again. And we'll just put the lid on and let it sit. Okay, so this has been on the stove for about 1 hour, and this is about enough time, I think, for us to start eating it. And as you can see, I've cut things pretty chunky, so I like to eat it as a broth, especially if I'm not feeling too good. And you can season it as you like. I didn't season it at the beginning because salt is not obligatory, but I like a little bit of salt in there. So I'll just put about 1/4 teaspoon. Give it a little stir. Just stir through the veggies, see how they are. And the color, you can see it's the goodness of the vegetables and the herbs has gone into the soup. And this is a really great economical soup, because you can actually, once I take this out, I'm going to have the broth and maybe a couple of little pieces, but then I'm going to top it up again with water, so I can it's the soup that keeps giving. Definitely put a couple of mushrooms in there. I love these shiitake mushrooms. but I think I'm going to leave most of the burdock in there because I like to, it's almost like a soup plus a herbal decoction. I'll take these in. Smells good. And then I'll top it up with a little bit more water. And I'm just going to leave it on the stove, leave it on low heat, and then probably turn it off a bit later. Let it brew again for another hour or two. And I basically will eat this all day. And usually at home, it may not be sort of within commercial kitchen standards, but I'll actually leave it overnight off the heat and then try it the next day. So one pot like this will feed 2 to 3 people quite easily. And yeah, and it's, like I say, the soup that keeps giving. Okay, good. So I'm just going to close that. And now I'm going to eat this in my favorite place, the garden.